Hey everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Return to Living Geeks. I'm your host, Michael Vaughn, and as always, we have fun just geeking out about horror and other movies and TV shows. And today, of course, I'm joined by a very special guest, Andre Couture, and he is here to discuss Hellbender, which I think, yes, is a fucking awesome movie. And hopefully, this is going to be out by the time it premieres on Shudder. Um, so let's just kick it off. Since you're the very special guest, I'll let you give me your first kind of thoughts and impressions on the movie.
Did we watch the same movie? Because this is the Hellbenders. This is the Hellbenders, right? We're
I
talking
mean,
Clancy Brown.
it's got Clancy Brown in it, so you can't go wrong.
Now it's me. Anyway,
Wait,
this Hellbenders. We're talking
Yeah.
about this Hellbenders. This is a crazy movie. No. Okay, here we go. That's a little bit better.
Oh, it looks like she's catching you.
Yeah. No, but seriously, so I think we first ran into this movie when we were covering Fantasia Fest
Mhm.
for Humanoids from the Deep Dive, which plug is another show that we're on. And you can listen to that because it's in our archives somewhere, or I don't know how podcast archives work. I guess
Yeah,
it's in the
I'll
backlog.
you can edit this out, but I will try to see if I can link that specific episode. But
Okay, yeah, that'll be a good idea because we liked it, at least.
yeah, hell yes, literally.
And I guess it's worth saying that despite how gung ho we are for Hellbender, it isn't necessarily for everyone. It's a little rough around the edges. It's very much still visually like an independent film. There's a lot of stuff made in house, a lot of um, like I would say maybe visual effects that are um, just that, rough around the edges, but like they do service the story in such a way that the writing, the performances, I would even garner to say like the sound design really does pull you in, and that goes for like their last um, major film that they had before, which is also has been available on Shutter for a while. Arrow Films put a Blu-ray of it out, I think. The Deeper You Dig, which I was able to watch most of earlier today,
Oh,
which
nice.
um, from what I've seen, I really dug it. Pun intended. So yeah. But no, back to Hellbender. It's a simple premise. It's a simple plot where follows a mother and daughter who live out in the woods just by themselves, and they um, the daughter stays in the house. She's been told that she has a rare illness where like if she comes into contact with anyone outside of her mother, basically, which is her family, um, she could contract something from someone else or give someone else something. Um, they mention exactly what it was um, about 20-30 minutes into the movie, but it's only really dropped once. It's really not all that important, but what is important is she notices that um, there might not be all uh, that might not be all there is to the reason why she can't like leave the homestead or go talk to other people. Um, they pass their time by they have a punk band together. I guess it's hard to put a pin on the genre. It's like it's a drum and
Yeah.
bass band that's um, it's post a lot of things, like music wise, and genres are really hard to pin down. So um, post punk, post whisper groove. I'm going to coin that term,
Okay.
whisper groove. Uh, but yeah, it's no secret in the beginning that this is a story about witches, especially the opening, which is a little eye-opening and surprising.
Yeah.
And from there, we learned that this mother and daughter, at least the mother, is a practicing witch, and everything else about it's a complete mystery. So like we watched this whole thing, and we're learning how this how their magic process works, and it's really pretty fascinating to see um, this original folk tale that they've spun.
Yeah, like that's great. And I would say that like you saying like the folk horror aspect, like, hits the nail on the head, because this is absolutely like a really pulpy folk horror. And yeah, like, so I also saw this with you during Fantasia Fest last summer. And yeah, dude, I was so impressed. Like, there is a lot of like witch movies, and I feel like a lot of them don't really they're all just sort of, they all kind of blend together. Like, they don't feel like they have anything that really sort of stands out. And I mean, this very much stands out. Like it's interesting how so I guess I should say up front, if you don't know, this was made by a mother, father, daughter team, which is so awesome. And they like make these movies, and like Andre, as you mentioned, like Arrow has The Deeper You Dig, and I believe The Hatred's also on there.
Yeah, as like an extra.
Yeah.
Okay,
um
they have some other films too that are not physically available, but I think they're able to rent through Vimeo, which I did find, and some
oh
of them
wow.
look pretty
Okay.
interesting.
Yeah, well, let me actually I will find that, and if I can, I'll link in the description so it's easier to find for y'all. But yeah, I think that's kind of incredible that we have this like um family duo. Like, I'm also kind of like, can you all adopt me?
Yeah,
That's so fucking cool. But anyways, like, um no, so I did get to interview them, and it was really cool because I had written my review in August, and like they had like referenced my review when I was interviewing them, which was so awesome because like I've interviewed a lot of people, and Andre, I know you've interviewed people before, and like it's pretty rare when like they actually sort of like take the time to actually like read your review and then like reference it. And like
yeah,
in my review I said about how it has a very Ken Russell sort of flavor,
hmm
and also that like it also like had a very Euro 70s horror feel.
yeah.
and
It does. It
and
does.
yeah, and they were like, dude, that is like so what we were going for. um
Yeah,
so
it's also
that
rare too that like your interviewees will read the interview that you did, unless like
mhm.
unless you did something that they really latched onto in that moment, or if you just like insulted them, which you definitely don't want to do.
Yeah.
But it's
um
that's super rare that they took the time to review like the finished product of that too.
yeah, absolutely. Like, they were really like, listen, it's not like people that I've interviewed over the years have been actively rude, but I will say that like I understand that like you have a press day where you do probably like a dozen of these.
Yeah.
So you don't always have the time to be like that um prepared for every interview
Mhm.
person.
Yeah, especially
um
when they're going through it left and right and like so much of it's likely a blur for them, even more so for like the higher profile actors, actresses, filmmakers, you know.
Yeah, like I mean it's like, so that's kind of why I was like, wow, that is so impressive that, you know, during a press junket they actually like knew my review and everything. Like that was cool. But yeah, like it's like really good. It's this is an aspect that we'll really get into, but this was like shot at the height of the pandemic, and like, so they do really clever things to keep, like, you know, if it's not just like them as like the family unit in a scene, like they'll like be outside and distance, but they weave it into the plot.
Yeah, like
um
their staging and blocking looks very organic, despite when you're watching it you can tell like, okay, they shot this in isolation, or in like before we could really even have a set, even like on an independent production, a set where you could um, consistently and strategically like test everyone on set to make sure that
yeah,
everyone had a negative test. And I think this was even pre-vaccine,
yeah.
so like
Hmm.
the precautions were even more important to follow here. So um, it's it's pretty evident when you're watching it, but it never takes you out of it. In fact,
No.
it almost leads into the story because of the illness that Zelda Adams's character, Izzy, I think Izzy is her name.
Mhm.
Uh, she is told that she has, so they already have this like instilled sense of caution, I guess.
Yeah, like it's, I mean, it's so genius too, because again, like the setup doesn't really pay off, but like it helps explain some of the, you know, again, like they were clever in how they got around sort of, you know, being like in a closed area with like, you know, outside people. I mean, again, it's awesome because like the, so I mean, this whole thing is more like a mother-daughter story, which I think is really cool. Um and so, you know, because they've isolated together, they can like pretty much do whatever, you know, like with no like boundaries shooting wise, which again, like I think is, you know, it makes sense on a story level, because like you want that sort of like intimate sort of like mother daughter thing, but then like, you know, it like you don't have anyone necessarily coming out in from the outside.
Yeah,
So
and when like they have something that's about to like breach that, there seems to be kind of like a um, I wouldn't necessarily say like a barricade, but there's a boundary there that like, even you can even see it on their faces. The mother and the daughter, like when someone is right on the edge of that boundary, um,
mm,
and like even the mother has that like protective instinct about her, where like um, she will she's the kind of person who will like, if they violate their space and they are aware that they're violating that, she will threaten them and then follow through on that threat. It is it's exemplified and shown in this film
oh yeah.
as
um
something that like you do not want to fuck with this family. um yeah.
Yeah. And again, like I said, it's so brilliant because one, I mean, it serves the story, but then it also serves like a really, you know, tangible, like safety sort of thing.
Mhm.
And I kind of love how like, so like John, the husband, is the guy that gets like fucking eviscerated. That's not very spoilery, I guess, but
It's pretty early on. That's It's
yeah.
kind of like a sampler almost of like the highs and the lows of like the like how intense things can get.
Yeah, and I kind of love how I mean, maybe I should say this for later, like just, I know you alluded to it earlier, but like I think it's so creative, like how they draw their power.
Yeah, it's so original too, and like but we'll probably get a little bit more into um the non-derivative nature of how like their magic is harnessed, which I think is definitely one of the most creative aspects of the movie, other than its framing device, that still manages to pull people in. I think maybe because it's just it was so relatable then in that moment, and still has that, it still carries that, the memory of us still navigating through a pandemic where
yeah.
people still feel this serious about keeping people at bay for a specific distance, for their boundaries, even when it comes to personal, physical, and mental health
Yeah.
specifically, and not really even that mutually exclusive either. You would always want to think of those terms in like a bundle of things for you as a person, or your family as a unit, or anyone that's like part of your, I guess, like immediate life. So
Yeah, I mean, that's a really great point because I feel like inadvertently this is sort of a metaphor on the pandemic without really being so overtly in the content. Like it's more like subtext and text. Um,
yeah, especially where the story goes from there, because it really just takes that and uses it as a springboard, but it's still always there. It's like
yeah,
it's the foundation that it never makes it about itself, which I think is the uh, for lack of a better term, like the pratfall for a lot of um, projects that kind of glorify the fact that they are a pandemic film,
mm,
or
yeah,
you know something that's unapologetically just um, like
kind of like exploitative with it.
a little bit, yeah, where
Yeah,
it's like it's bearing its form to the world, but like not really doing much more with it, rather than just like, take pity on me. This is a project I made in the pandemic, but really calling more attention to that than the reason why they really want to tell the story, which this
yeah.
is a complete opposite.
I mean, it like, and this is another aspect that I like. I was really happy to actually like bring up with like the family. I've never interviewed like uh, a mom, dad, daughter filmmaking duo, which was kind of wild, but like really awesome. But you know, I'm sure you know that like shooting outside is like one of the most difficult things. Like I have like filmmaker friends that like
Yeah,
it's a nightmare, but I mean like a lot of this is shot outside and looks fantastic.
yeah, and like I think I did read something about that where um the, like, other than weather, lighting is one of the other like very unpredictable things, and lighting is one of the most important visual aspects of like any movie. um, and they didn't have a lot of their own, um, well, the lighting equipment that they did have didn't really mean much, especially when you're shooting out in the woods. Like you might get a little bit of an opportunity to like maybe use a few reflectors if you want to like make something a little bit brighter, but a lot of this is just like lucking out with natural light. Um, I don't know how many times that they must have had to set and reset, and then reset like the white balance. Um, it just seems like it was a really tedious shoot in some regards, but I'm not exactly sure if that was necessarily the case, because I mean, with like John Adams directing his wife and his daughter. I'm fairly sure that they have like some kind of shorthand that a lot of other, even very tightly knit small production crews and performers don't necessarily share.
Yeah.
Um,
No, that's a really good point, because like I'm sure that like, they have literally all day to plan this stuff out and then just execute it. And
mhm.
I mean, like I said in my review, this is like a gorgeous looking film. Like I've seen like films that cost like, you know, multi-millions that don't look nearly as good as this film does.
Yeah.
Um, because I mean, like it much is a moody, dark fairy tale sort of, it I, I mean, but it's so impressive what they were able to do with like pretty much no budget. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, that's like it's kind of like what I always say. It's like you don't need budget for a really cool story. Like just tell an awesome story, and like yeah, there's a lot of craft behind it too. Obviously, it's like, but I mean, if you don't have like a good foundation for like story, like a good story to start from, like you can have $1 billion. You know what I mean? And
Yeah. Just make it simple at least. Uh, but this movie does achieve like a simple story and a satisfying one.
yeah,
And like you said, it doesn't have a payoff necessarily. Um, and I think that might be one of the points that I would bring up for just to say why this movie might not be for everyone necessarily, because some people do like things to be tied up into a neat little bow, and like there can be arguments made for that in like case by case basis for uh, stories of differing magnitudes. And this one is a very small story. It doesn't have like a very large implication, um, but it does do something with large implications, and that's the world building, where like it creates this whole hidden history of these witch. I guess yeah, they're just like a family, a line of witches called Hellbenders, and they have this ability to. I don't even think there's really a limit posed in the movie where like to what they can do, but it can be things like flying, telekinesis, um, like mind control, something like that.
yeah. Like I want to get your take on something. I know, like, the very opening scene is kind of wild.
It is, yeah.
um, and I like, was that supposed to be like their like? I guess it's implied that that's um. So I guess it's not spoiler to say talk about the opening scene. So they're about to like hang this witch, and she just like takes off like a rocket.
Well, she doesn't die. That's the thing. Is they hang her by the rope, and she's just like struggling there.
Yeah.
And then one of the other women who's down on the ground, she pulls out a revolver. It's like I think this takes place in like the 19th century, 1800 something, and she shoots her to like make sure that she's really dead, but that doesn't happen. So she fires like I think all 6 bullets or something like that into her, and she still is like not dead. Um, and then all of a sudden, the witch um, that's being hanged, just flames come out of like the bottom of her, and she just takes off like a rocket into the
Yeah.
air. And then we cut to her face in the air as she's like skyrocketing. And then it cuts to the title, and like
Yeah.
you have no idea like what any of this means. But information is very, very slowly doled out to you. So by the end of the movie, you can probably guess who that was, and why, or I guess what happened exactly with that.
Yeah, like I wonder, like I don't. Yeah, that's a good way to like say it without like giving anything away, like end
Yeah,
wise.
because we do want you to see this movie,
Yeah.
and again and again.
Yeah. I mean, it. Listen, like I, bar none, think that this was one of my favorite movies of 2021. Like I very easily can see this having a huge cult following.
Hmm. Oh yeah,
Um,
maybe even more so than their previous film, which I don't see a lot of people talking about. But
yeah.
maybe just like as an up and coming thing.
Well, and I think that like so I liked The Deeper You Dig. Um, I don't think it's as polished as this film. Like I think it has a decent story, but I don't think that the world building is kind of as engrossing or as complete as Hellbender. But having said that, I still think it's a really interesting film, and I think it's like wholeheartedly worth picking up.
Mhm.
Like I'll link the Blu-ray in the description if y'all are interested in checking it out. Also not sponsored by Arrow, but
Would be nice.
should check it
Yeah,
out.
yeah. I mean, I'm always going to support a physical media label if they have something out that I like to watch. And uh, Deeper You Dig is one of those things. And like I said, I have only really seen at this point a little bit more than half of it. So I get what you're saying there with the like the world building is there, but it's not like fully fleshed out
Yeah,
at least.
like it's
Um,
not, yeah, like it's there. I mean, like there's it's interesting enough to hook me, but like it wasn't as like refined. um
yeah, but for me, what was working the most was exactly the thing that worked the most for me in Hellbender, and that was the performances.
hmm.
It shares most pretty much the same cast mostly, with Toby Poser and Zel- Zelda Adams. Sorry,
Yeah.
wasn't sure if I was going to say the character name or not. Um, and some other, minor character actors that don't necessarily carry over from film to film. But um, I forgot what I was going to say.
um yeah, that's okay. I mean, just blurt it out when you that's what I do when I forget stuff. It's like it'll
Okay,
will be like.
it'll come to me.
But yeah, and I think like at the end at like what I really love is like, okay, yeah, it is a horror movie, it is about witches, but then there's like this really sincere mother-daughter um storyline. And obviously they connect really well because they are mother and daughter, you know what I mean? So like I, it's I like when something like that can be like woven into like the story so organically. Like it's yeah, I mean, again, it adds not only does it add like a lot of layers, but again, not to it very much pays off in the end without spoiling
Mhm.
anything.
Yeah, the dynamic between the two really does come to a head, and I think that if it were like someone else, playing the mother or the daughter, I, I mean, at least two different actors that weren't necessarily this part of this family team, I don't think it would have come across quite as impactful as it did here.
Yeah.
So
Like yeah, like there's little moments that like just really just suck me into the moment, and like I'm just totally enthralled by everything that's happening. And listen, like that is like a huge credit to like both actors.
yeah,
You
because
know.
they've honestly just been working together. Um, like I know that Zelda Adams has not, like, she doesn't go to like acting school or film school. It's just they just kind of just learn stuff as they go on set, and um, just sort of like passing down like knowledge through craft. And
Yeah.
that's honestly like one of the best ways you can learn about filmmaking. Even if you
Oh yeah.
read any filmmaking book, that's what they say.
Just do
Like
it.
it's
Just
one
do it.
thing if you're just like in a film class watching movies. It's another when you're like thrown in like as a production assistant. You like, I don't know what I'm doing. You'll learn pretty quick.
Yeah. Um, I guess we can kind of talk about like the ending without really spoiling anything, but it definitely gets very trippy. Like that's
Yeah.
where I feel like it really gets this sort of like Ken Russell vibe for me.
Yeah. Like those there's interstitial visuals, um like Ken Russell was wont to do like with his films and projects. But this one it very effectively like takes those influences and it has its own voice about it, and it's not necessarily about what you're seeing but about what the iconography um, reaches out for thematically. And like it's really like a very simple theme that it hammers down, and I think for me uh, the theme that came out the most is about control,
Yeah.
where that is the most important thing in this family of hellbenders, where the mother is obviously older, much wiser, knows exactly what she's capable of, but she also knows what her daughter is capable of, and she's not sure how long it'll take for her daughter to get to the place where she, the mother, is now. Um, and by the end of the film, a lot of those are kind of they come up in question to keep it as vague as possible. And I think that's really what stuck out to me most, and that's what I think gives this film like a lot of staying power.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, like it really does hammer home a lot of like pretty timeless themes. And again, I like how it weaves it into this really fantastical plot, but there are elements that still I feel like resonates with people. Which I feel like is what like any good movie does, horror, horror or any genre really. And like I I I kind of like just love how like the movie really like weaves in this whole like nature and like how like oh man, I can't remember. There's a like the mantra that they do where it's like spring eats
Yeah.
yeah,
I think it's just spring eats summer, summer eats fall,
yeah.
fall eats winter, and then it's an endless cycle. It's their like Ouroboros um, mantra, I think.
Yeah, and I mean that is so like beautifully sort of like strung out through the whole film. I mean again, it's something that is really sophisticated that I think that a lot of filmmakers fail to do, which is really like, you have a central theme and then you like perfectly weave it in throughout the whole entire film. And it seems simple, but I mean, it's really something that I think a lot of like filmmakers fail to do very successfully sometimes.
Yeah, I think it might have something to do with like there's the phrase that a lot of writers use, um, and like might seem very familiar to people who read those works from those writers or watch those films that those writers write, and that's to kill your darlings. And there's something that also comes from that, Whereas killing your darlings is like if you are in love with a certain concept or character, like you have to put it through the ringer. You have to put them through the ringer. You have to make them realize through actual, maybe even literal, depending on your story, trials and tribulations. Like put them through it because like no one's ever seen or read this thing before. They don't know this character like you do. So you have to show us like what they would do, why they would do it, and how they bounce off of the theme that you're trying to convey. And with this control theme, like you have virtually just these two characters, the mother and the daughter, and whether or not like you will have these interactions with other side characters, where the mother goes to town. You know, there's a couple quick sequences here and there, which have like some nice and creepy like little implications that are kind of like a test situation for her and her daughter, like trying to figure out how to confront, how to talk around things. It almost kind of like approaches the "you're a witch" conversation as like the birds and the bees, which makes it a little bit kind of a funny sit down, like, so here's the thing conversation. But like that in itself is a trial and tribulation, where in like any coming of age story, which this also is sort of, like you have that conversation with someone close to you, in which case this is the only person that she lives with. So it's like it comes across as like much more vital yet like visceral way, where you really do like feel some of these changes with Zelda's character. And I think that's like probably the most important thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And like again, it's something that like am just constantly so impressed with like how like detailed and interesting of a world there is. And like, you know, it has its own like mythology. And like I love that shit. Like give me more of that.
I mean, they could make more movies set in this world.
Oh yeah.
And honestly, you could even connect this world to the film world of Deeper You Dig, because it's
Oh,
still, it
easily.
definitely feels very connective in that regard. Um, and honestly, like I want to see that. Although I do know that the Adams family is, they have a tendency to create original material, and I also don't want that to end. So
Yeah.
I think they could still do something in that regard, but like I think they'd have to do it on their own terms, and we should respect that,
Yeah.
of course. But I'm really just here to see whatever this family makes next.
Oh,
Like, I'm all here for it.
1,000,000%. Like I hope they're making like a movie right as we speak. Like
You know, they might be.
I hope so. Like
Yeah.
um dude, I would like travel and like just to be like killed in one of their movies. I mean, I would do it for free.
I might too, actually,
Um like
depending
if
on where
they're
they're located. I think they're
yeah.
like upstate New York, so you're actually closer
Oh,
to
okay.
them than I am. So
Kill me in a movie.
you can just
Uh,
I'll send you a cardboard standee of myself, and like
yes.
use that,
No,
license the image.
I will wear a shirt with your face on it.
Okay, that's even better.
And you're
More
like,
publicity. It'd be like that a completely different movie reference here, but you'll be like that moment in Spookies, except it's not your own face, it's my face. And it
wait,
has to be on a spider web.
yeah. What I mean, what if this is in the Spookies universe?
I think they could do it justice.
Yeah.
I think they can do it.
We would have to have some farty muckmen.
You know, there is a potential future where these guys do make that happen, and they leave the farting in, but it's artful. Like it actually is good.
Yeah.
And it never pulls or detracts from the film. But anyway,
Yeah, that would be a Herculean feat, but I would love it. Yeah, like yeah, gosh. So do at this point, do we want to like say sort of like more about like how they draw their power? Because I think that's really interesting. Do you think that's too spoilery?
um, you know, I'm not exactly sure what constitutes a spoiler other than like just giving away the ending.
Yeah, I don't. So I guess this maybe we'll just say is a very minor spoiler. Um, and we can always like maybe timestamp it from beginning to end. But because I definitely want to get into it because I think it's really creative and clever. But and again, forgive me because it's been since like last summer since I've seen it, but like they get like like they draw their power from like the fear of their victims.
Yeah,
Like it,
specifically biological victims. So
yeah.
like um throughout the movie, especially the early bits, like it's mom comes down, it's like dinner time, or breakfast or whatever, and you look at their plates and there's just like sticks and pine cones, and you're like, okay, and then you just don't really think much of it, but they eat it, and you're still kind of like wondering what's going on here. Is this a metaphor, or because it doesn't explicitly tell you. But later on in the film, when Izzy's mom is like giving her the talk, it's I'm always going to refer to that scene as that now.
Yeah.
Um, she like gives her, was it like a caterpillar, and she just tells her to eat it, and she eats it, and uh, her explanation is that these life forms like have a power in them. But every life form that has this power also has the capacity of fear, and it's that fear that we eat that like fuels our power. And like your mileage may vary, just like how anyone's metabolism might vary. Where like you can eat an entire pizza, and like you can still want to eat like three more of those, or like you have like two slices of pizza, and you're just like you're asleep. So it's kind of like that with other living things like caterpillars, worms, even just like flowers. They have a certain amount of energy in them, and you can do like whatever powers that you have, and you don't know until you like try. So
Yeah, but
it's
like it also like makes them trip balls if I'm remembering that correctly.
it
Like
does
it's
because it's so concentrated, I
yeah.
think. And when Izzy eats that caterpillar, things get a little interesting.
I mean, but like it's such a simple concept, but it's so brilliant because I feel like, not only is it like kind of messed up that you're like feeding on someone's fear, but then it also gives you like this LSD trip like experience.
Yeah,
Um, I mean, I won't say like how that kind of pays off, but I feel like it definitely does sort of pay off in the finale of this sort of like there's like this constant like push and pull between the two of them. And I mean, it wonderfully pays off. Like, I think that's one of the coolest endings I've seen in a movie in a while.
hmm and
Like,
in thinking back on it, it made me think a little bit more now about maybe both Suspirias in a way, where like they all have some element of witchcraft about them.
Mm.
One a little bit more sinister than the others, not nearly as sinister as Hellbender, but it has this like chaotic energy about it. And I think that might be that like example of when the leash is completely off, like pure energy, pure unbridled drive. It's like a primal drive that's not kept in check in any way. That sort of just is always there.
Yeah. I feel like when she says like, the different seasons, consume each other, I feel like that's exactly like a perfect foreshadowing was the ending.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah,
oh man,
yeah,
that's such a good movie.
it really is. Like, I know that like when it drops, um, I guess by the time this comes out, time traveling, this will be on Shudder, one of our favorite streaming services. So you should watch it. And I know I'm gonna rewatch it again. This will be my third time,
Yeah.
and this will be your fourth time.
Yeah, like I watched it twice for the film festival and then once before my interview. And oh man, like it's like so good. The music is awesome. Like
Yeah, and
I
it is really really cool. I wasn't sure what to think of it at first, but it really did grow on me, like the
yeah.
music.
And like I love how like they're in like full like makeup and stuff. It's like it's
Yeah,
everything.
it's as much for themselves as it is for us, but in their world, it's really just for them.
Yeah.
But like it also shows how unafraid they are too, which I think is really cool. And that crown is fucking awesome.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Um, Izzy has this. It looks like a heavy metal crown, like that just goes around. Um, I think they've put up the actual poster now, but yeah, but the new poster is, I think it's an illustration with her with the crown on, and it's not just cover art; it's in the movie, and it's
Yeah.
pretty fucking cool.
It's very badass. Like it's going to be interesting to see like what the reaction is, but you know what would be really awesome if they do this on Joe Bob Briggs.
That'll be fun.
Yeah.
Because I do know that he has been known to like bring some newcomers to films, even if they're like classics that you and I like have seen dozens and dozens of times. But still, like he always has an eye for bringing something like independent into light, where it's like not really specifically on the drive-in, so bad it's good aspect, but like the craftsmanship too.
Oh yeah, yeah, totally. Like oh, I'm blanking on it, but I'm trying to think like what like one of the I know he did a girl that walks home at midnight, which is pretty fantastic.
Yeah, and like he kind of like front loaded his own uh criticism of like, oh, you're showing a foreign movie with subtitles, but like that's part of that's his own character. So
Yeah.
um,
But yeah, this movie definitely speaks to me. Like it's interesting because like I grew up in like rural Pennsylvania and like it was kind of like a really picturesque kind of place, but it could also be really like eerie and kind of isolating and kind of spooky. So
yeah,
um like I definitely like would like play in the woods that could be like very spooky looking and like so I kind of connect with all that stuff. But yeah, like do we want to just like I guess we can just wrap it up with like some final thoughts. So I'll kick it off to you.
sure. Um, yeah, I mean, it's hard to say what I haven't already said really about this movie. Um, I don't know. I think that its virtues lie in its imperfections. Like, not to like be all deep about it, but it's it really is something that you love to look at, and you want to be there. You want to be in this world. You want to learn more about these characters, and the movie gives you that. It gives you just enough, I think. It doesn't pull you back to leave you wanting more, although it does do that, but not in the way that I'm meaning. Um, it's hmm, it's hard to say other than that, especially to people who haven't seen it, where if they've never heard of the Addams Family films before, never seen any of their films, there might be a little bit of an adjustment period. But I think in the beginning third, I think, of the film, uh, people who will enjoy it will acclimate to it. They will um, sort of see how naturally bumpy the ride's going to be, and whether or not you're in for it. Um, I mean, it's going to surprise anyone on the first viewing,
Oh
I'd
yeah,
say.
yeah.
Um, but I say, if you're someone who usually gives a movie a try and they kind of duck out before it's over, just give it a full shot. Watch the whole thing.
Yeah. Um yeah, that's great. Like I totally agree with that. Like I think if I were to sum it up, I would say like it's a slow burn. So like
Mhm.
I'm kind of echoing what you said, but like, you definitely want to give it like the full, like your full attention. And like, it's a little bit slowly paced, but I was never bored. Like, frankly, I was always sort of, I watched it like three times and I had no problem with watching it that many times. Like, and the thing is, like, I don't mind a slow burn, but like, even I kind of have my limits and I never felt like I got there. You know what I mean? So, like,
Yeah.
it, it does such a good job, I think, at like in enveloping you into this world that they created.
Yeah.
Like there's
Um,
such, yeah, like there's such an ease to the world building, which I think is why it like made me want to see more. And I'm like, I'm drawn in. So like now I want more and more.
mhm.
Um, so it's gonna be really interesting to see what the response is, but I hope everyone loves it because I fucking love it.
Yeah. And it'd be interesting to see too who's coming to it, uh, having seen Deeper You Dig,
Mm.
which I don't know how long it's been on Shutter, but is at least available now on there. But yeah, I would like to see it get uh, a bit of a boost, like you said earlier with Joe Bob. I do really hope that it finds a really nice platform and fan base, and that this gets the Adams Family films to their next project
Yeah.
to make it, if anything, that much easier. That's really um, the goal for filmmakers, is like, how do I make sure that people see my next film? And like, they've been doing this for quite a little while, and
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to stop anytime soon, especially after this.
Yeah, like I definitely, have a good feeling. Like I know that like I've been seeing like on Facebook friends with like John and Zelda. And like they like post like some really cool like articles. Like I know some big outlets have like picked up like their story about them being like a family filmmaking
Mhm.
like oh my gosh, family filmmaking team. Gosh, I can say that. But like, again, they have the talent, and I feel like people are going to see that, and I feel like people are going to connect with that. Like, Roger Corman kind of has this like famous saying that like the talented will always get promoted.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, and these people are so talented too.
yeah,
Like I feel so jealous towards Zelda Adams' just like innate natural ability to like emote the way she does,
hmm,
even like least of all in front of the camera. That's even more difficult. Um, it's just fantastic, like what this family can do, and like I
right.
don't even think we've seen all that they can do yet.
No, I have a feeling that like they haven't like reached their apex yet. Like like I just feel like they're gonna get better and better. And I'm
Yeah,
like, also adopt me, please.
I mean, me too. Why not?
Yeah.
But yeah, like I want to see them reach the apex, not as quickly, but as dramatically as the Hellbender from the beginning of the movie.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's like before I interviewed them, I did get it like that's when I watched the Deeper You Dig, and I feel like again, it's like a big step up. Like it's not to say that that movie's bad, um, but I mean, I'm seeing them mature in a way that's really cool.
Yeah, it's like they made Deeper You Dig. They took note of, you know, I'm sure they submitted that to festivals, and it obviously got a distribution deal because Era Video put it out, and like that's a pretty good gig. Like to
Yeah.
get one of your independent films to be put out through a label like that, um, especially packaged with one of your older films um, along with it, but then also to take a look at that objectively, that Deeper You Dig film, and make a note of like what worked, what didn't work, and then actually constructively keep that in mind while working on your next project, which I think Hellbender was the next project
Mhm.
after Deeper. Yeah. So then like weaving that into not only just the writing, like the pre-production stuff, but the shooting and keeping in mind what they were going for, what they were doing, leading into post-production and eventually release. That it's it's nothing entirely personal at all, because like the film is a product, and you want to like do the best that you can to put this out.
Yeah, and like I think it's interesting because like I one of the things that I brought up actually in the interview was how, I was like, I like Deeper You Dig, but I was like, I definitely, felt like y'all have really matured. Like, and I wanted to say it in a way that wasn't like, you know,
You guys are so better now.
right. Like,
Yeah.
in a way that wasn't insulting because I definitely did like their previous film, but I just feel like everything is like so more complex and interesting and like, again, the world building is so rich and like enveloping. And the dynamic between the mother daughter was like one of the coolest things. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
awesome. um so yeah, um did you have anything to add or
I think I might have said everything that has really been going through my brain about this movie, but I guess one other note that I would say is the the music in this movie is not only is it like actually written and performed by the family, where like Zelda actually does sing the vocals. Um, Toby Poser also plays the bass, uh, the name of the band is also Hellbender, which this music has been out for a while.
Yeah, they
and
have
was used for
they have a YouTube channel, and I'll be sure to link that in the description if y'all want to check that out, and definitely give them like some love because it's fucking awesome.
yeah, I would love a physical release of this album too,
Yeah.
or even if it's like a collected, like a soundtrack for the movie. I get that. I just want to hear more Hellbender songs. So
And yeah, and like give me all the merch. Like, I mean, I will like throw money at it.
I mean, even if you send me a caterpillar, I will be happy. I will eat it. I will eat it in front of the camera.
You will eat it, trip balls, and become really powerful.
I will at least trip balls. I can't promise the other part.
Well, I mean, you might think you're powerful, so that, you know.
It's true. That might just be part of the trip, though.
Yeah, like it would be really cool if, I mean, this is a movie that is sort of begging for a really nice, like vinyl release. Like I don't collect a lot of vinyls, but I would buy this shit out of this.
Yeah, you know, TerrorVision would do this pretty well.
Yeah.
It would do it some justice. And I know that they put out some really nice film and TV vinyl and tapes. So
yeah, so make it happen. We're willing it into the world, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
we have a knack for that, apparently.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I think that's pretty much, I think I'm kind of summed up as well. So again, it is on Shudder. So definitely check it out, give it some love. And if you like this video, definitely consider giving it a like, you know, eating a worm and giving it some power in the form of some likes and comments, and
manifest your power through the worm.
You could just do the worm.
Or you could do the worm too. We'll feel it either way.
But yeah, definitely you know, hit subscribe, and we're gonna be doing some like more awesome videos, possibly something chainsaw related, maybe.
Chainsaw Hellbenders, the sequel.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I would love it. I would love a follow-up to
if a Hellbender ate like the severed limbs of a chainsaw victim, what would happen? Or if they ate Leatherface's face, would that just be like beef jerky? I don't know.
Or would like would the residual fear from their face be?
Oh, that'd be supercharged with fear. I don't know about the face because it depends on who it is, really.
Right. But like, but what I'm saying is like, would the face be like marinated in fear?
It's possible. I mean, like, that's a good question for the world building. Does the external fear like permeate through the mask? Is it like when you're smoking meats? Is it like that?
Yeah, or like it absorbs like.
Or is it like a slather?
Yeah, but then you kind of get into this like whole like these like psychic scars and fears that like linger on.
That's potential sequel grounds right there.
Mm.
All you need to do to make that is sell it to the Addams family on basis of adoption.
Yes, adopt me. Okay, so I think that is all the video we have left, but
yeah,
thank you for coming on this journey with us, eating the worm and having a nice mellow trip with us. So definitely you know, check back because we'll have some more pretty awesome content. So thanks for hanging out with us.
Yep.